Dear colleagues, my listeners, my followers, and my students, and my global followers around the world. Today we got uh, a lecturer from far away from Central Michigan University, Professor Matthew Kuofie. Even though he's a professor of business, he got political career as well. He used to a former candidate to US Congress from his region. And I would like to ask him to share his opinions for post-pandemic world. How do you oversee in coming years? What do you expect, both in US and globe? Please, Professor Matthew Kuofie.
Well, Dr. Ahmed, thanks for this opportunity to address the world about the post-COVID-19 era. What do we see? It's very simple. We're going to be experiencing the new normal in all aspects of the industry, business, engineering, and everything. We're going to be experiencing globalization. This will be based on what is currently happening right now. For example, what do we see in the medical field? We see that they are using telemedicine, whereby patients interact with the medical doctors via Zoom.
Yeah.
And that is, that gives the medical doctors freedom to also have a life and not be in the office all the time. It also frees up the workforce of the medical profession. We will see that there will be very few staff, which indicates that they may have to be trained in different areas. Not only that, we can also see that the medical profession in the psychophysiotherapy will be faced with enormous demand, high demand, because what are we seeing? The effect of isolation, people being in their homes, because as we realize, in order for people to save, they have to practice social distancing. They have to be in a position to wear masks and have their own freedom. In that aspect, what happens is that after the post-COVID-19 era, people who didn't have the freedom or really go through the mourning of the loved ones, they'll be faced with those post-mortem era. They'll still be mourning the lost ones. The lost ones which they could not actually interact because it was not appropriate for them to visit them in the hospitals or in the nursing homes and all that, and to say bye-bye with, for them to be, to go or to be called by the Almighty One. In that aspect, what we see is that they will have to be grieving. There will also be the other impact of the fact that because they were staying at home, they will be facing some hardships on the family. Not only that, income will be hard to come by. And this will all impact the people's lifestyle. And therefore, those people or the medical doctors in that field of psychotherapy will be in high demand. Now, as you know, Professor and the colleagues around the world, we now realize that education is booming in the online business, online, education. Students will no longer be in the in the classroom like we used to. A lot of the universities are adapting the online system, which means that this is going to be continued. There's been a high demand for university professors to be doing online work. As a matter of fact, we realize that even classes and all that are going on. And even as we speak, you realize that in India, there's a policy, or what is happening is that they are having workspace sharing, because there is a lot of spaces that will be vacant. People will not be going to work like we see. They'll be working from home. That's how I see it. The other aspect of things that I see happening is that if we look at globalization in its entirety, the Republic of Korea, for example, is expanding on its global collaboration partnership, trade partnership, not only with some few countries like US and European countries. They are also looking at collaboration with Dubai in the UAE in order to enhance on their relationship with other countries, so that their trade or their economy will be independent of just a few countries, which means they will be acquiring wealth by interacting or doing trade with multiple countries. And these are all becoming good in the sense that they will have the freedom to do so. Now, if we talk about Dubai, Dubai is actually having the tolerance of coexistence. They are multinational, multiple nationalities in Dubai. So the Dubai population of 1 million citizens, they also have other nationalities in there. And they are actually having policies that will accommodate all the different nationalities over there. In retrospect, they have policies that will accommodate for Christians, they will accommodate Islamic, they will accommodate Hindus and all that from India and other countries, Saudi Arabia, South Koreans and all that, Africans and all that, so to say. So that is what I see to be happening. Now let's look at transportation. What do we see in transportation? Very simple. In big cities where they have mass transport system, bus system, subway system, as we can see in this COVID-19 pandemic, cities like Los Angeles and New York City, their public transportation is system so jammed up. So many, workers taking the train, and also the students and all that, taking the trains and buses. In order to curb this, COVID-19 impact, we're realizing that people are practicing social systems, social distances. So the way I see it is that countries are coming up with as zero emission bus systems. These systems travel on the road just like skating board, with seats that have been partitioned so that passengers have their own shoulder curtains so that they don't interact or they don't sit close to each other. And also, this new transport system will be actually be desensitized. Okay, disinfectant to be in to take care of them. And these are things that are happening. They are all going to be happening in the very few, in the next few months after the the post-COVID-19 era. Okay. Now, what is going to happen here is that cost will be easier to deal with. And because of the fact that we're going to be having zero emissions, and the fact that a lot of people will be working from home, there will be not much people on the road. Okay, that is how we see it. Now, even in the sports, industry, you can see that these days, the soccer, the sports field don't have much or many spectators. Most of them are watching the sports like baseball, like golf. They watch on TV. They watch on the social media, like Zoom and all that. That's what is going to happen. That is basically what is going to happen. And I think it's cost effective to the teams. Now, what do we see on the other side? A lot of these TV stations will be having demand for people who will be watching the TV, and therefore teams will be getting a lot of proceeds from TV contracts, which will be used to pay for the players. That's the way I look at it. That's the way I look at it. Now, let's look at the entertainment field. Musicians, the what they call film actors and all that. We will see that it's also going to affect the same issue. A lot of activities will be occurring on TVs, on what they call special, networks. A lot of people will not be going to the venue because of social distance. They will not be when they go to the theater, it will be limited space because people have to practice social distance. That is how we look at it. So from the business aspect, that is how I see it. And it's going to create more opportunities for people to actually endeavor into all those areas. Because in the business sense, as you know, problems are the root cause or create opportunity for entrepreneurs, business entrepreneurs, to venture to address those issues. And therefore, that is the way I look at it. One other thing that I would even say regarding this entertainment field is that not only does it affect those kind of people, the people who will be going to the few people who will be going to the field will have their work cut out for them. In the sense that the restaurants, the queues, that cubicles that these few spectators on the field will be in, will be having few capacity, not 100% capacity because of social distance. In that nutshell too, if you see that people are going to restaurants and all that, they have to practice social distance. And that's also going to be carried on, after the post-COVID-19 era. That's the way I look at it. That's the way I see it. And it's happening not only in the US, but it's also happening in other countries like Spain and Italy, France. Okay? Now, even if you go to the churches, if you even go to the churches, a lot of people are having online church services. They use Zoom to communicate. They use Zoom as online facility for online services on Sundays or whatever. This is going to be happening because the old folks don't want to be out in church areas, in mosques, in Jewish temples and all that. They like to have their own privacy and also to communicate without getting infection. By the way, what is happening is that even though we are looking at this COVID-19 ending, in a year or two's time, it's not going to go forever. Because in the US, for example, every winter period, we have flu coming into place. And in those cold seasons, we may have flu in addition to COVID, coronavirus. And hopefully, we believe that there will be a vaccine at that point in time to take care of the COVID-19. Now, that's one area. That's another area that I see. And in the case of even the COVID-19 vaccine, if you look at the medical field, if you look at university researchers, they typically come up with inventions or research using existing data. They are using existing data. So COVID-19, as you noticed, they're claiming that university researchers are coming up with inventions. We're talking about Oxford University in UK. We're talking about the Washington university in US. We are talking about research centers, medical centers in New York, Johns Hopkins University in Maryland. These are all, they are all coming up with research based on existing data, based on existing medications. And we know that based on the literature, we have at least something to start with. And in that aspect, what happens is that it takes some time to come up with findings, results, before it can be passed to the business field or the business community, who then actually manufacture, they implement the results and come up with medication that will address the COVID-19. Now, let's look at it from this angle again. In order to provide the vaccine or treatment for COVID-19 and to distribute it to countries around the world, needs some sort of well-organized manufacturing and distribution, so that the prices will be very reasonable to all citizens in all the world. That is the way I look at it. It's an opportunity. And you know, I know that that is what research is about. That's what research is about. And with the government officials, countries and all that will have to chip in. World Health Organization has to chip in order to make the treatment of vaccine or other medications, you know, manufactured and distributed at reasonable prices.
Now, you are just summarizing now. We are approaching to end of the conference. Huh? All right.
Oh, great. Now, all these things that we are talking about, I see that this is going to be happening by using what I refer to as the servant leadership style, because people want their freedom.
Yeah.
And therefore, I don't see that transformational leadership is going to work that well, but rather servant leadership. So in summary, I see that the COVID-19 issues are providing lots of opportunities in different areas, including globalization and different workforce and other things. So we're going to be facing or living the new normal based on what is happening in the COVID-19 era. So in summary, that is it. And so thank you, Dr. Ahmed, for this opportunity, and thank you very much for you all for listening to my perspective about the post-COVID-19 era.
Oh, thank you, Professor Matthew Kuofie. It was a pleasure to see you after around 10 years, because we met in 2011 in Ankara. It's new normal is something like, just reminds me that it's like from Huxley's experience, brave new world. Maybe we'll see in coming years. Thank you very much and take care. See you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.